America, it's time for some straight talk. You love your phone. Look at you. You hardly put it down. But you don't love that expensive wireless plan, do you? So what if I told you can keep that phone network and number 2 for a lot less? Well, this is me telling you. It's time to switch to Straight Talk, guys. Bring your own phone and get unlimited plans starting at just $45 a month on America's largest, most dependable 4G LTE networks. Straight Talk Wireless. Only at Walmart.
Savings may vary. Please refer always to the latest terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Subscribe now by going to the Listen tab in the ESPN app.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Here we are. We're Mike and Mike back and better than ever, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, rolling through a week where at times it feels as though we're becoming untethered. I can't ever recall a more unsettling time in our society. And we'll talk about that today, in part because a lot of the people who make up our world of sports, Mike, are talking about it. That is certainly one way among many that things have changed. The way athletes are using their fame to address social issues is something that we never used to see.
Well, yeah, because we never had social media like this. So obviously with those times are going to come more people speaking out. There were certainly athletes that spoke out, in the past, but there wasn't as many outlets for them to do it and as quickly to do it. So I think that was going to be a natural change.
But I think it's gone beyond that. I think if we look back at, and we've talked so much in the year or so since his passing about Muhammad Ali and his social activism and other athletes of his generation, then we went through a long period of time there, which would really have made up, I think, the majority of the time that you were playing, and then certainly pretty much the entirety of the time that we've been covering sports, where the easiest thing to do for all of these celebrity athletes was to say nothing about anything even remotely controversial, because the goal was building a brand, not offending anybody. Michael Jordan famously saying some of the things that he said, and just staying out of everything. Yeah. That's really what I meant by that. It's not so much how they're going about doing it, because anything from sideline protests to comments in front of a microphone to social media, of course, has been a big part of it. It's not even so much the means by which they're doing it. I just find it remarkable that we have gone basically 180 from a time not that long ago where it was unfashionable and almost unimaginable that a player or any athlete with a lot of brand concerns, with a lot of corporate partners and all that kind of stuff would ever make controversial statements, to where now that is really very commonplace.
Yeah, that certainly has turned. And I do think once some start to do it, others follow along. I think that's part of it as well. And I do think that the social media makes it way easier to be able to get yourself out there quickly and do. But to your point, players in the past wouldn't do it. They just wouldn't do it. Whether you want to say they were afraid or just protecting their brand, whatever it was, they would not come out as much on things.
What do you think about that has changed? Where do you think that change began? If you look at, again, I hate to keep singling out Michael Jordan, but he was the most famous athlete of his time, and he was legendarily loath to get involved in any of this sort of conversation. And so were all the athletes, really the top-level athletes of his time. It has always been more commonplace to see show business entertainers, actors, etc., being involved in political, whatever it was. I remember when I was in college, Rob Lowe, the actor, came and spoke on behalf of a presidential candidate. So there's always been that. And there's certainly been a lot less of it in the sports world. And now all of a sudden, I feel like the people, the highest profile people in sports are among the loudest voices in the social debate that we have in our society. And I'm not even casting a value judgment on whether that's good or bad. I just find it a fascinating development.
Maybe for some it just gets to a point. I don't know. Listen, we know as of late a point has been reached, but let's also not just say it's just been in the last few months. It's been in the last couple of years.
It has.
So I know a lot of people are going to, will throw on this administration and Trump, and rightfully so in some things. I completely understand that, but it was before that as well, leading up to it, and maybe at some point people are just saying, or athletes are just saying, you know what, it just, we see it too much. It's in our face every day. How can we not say something? And it seems to be getting worse, not getting better. So maybe our voice can lend something, the way that LeBron said what he said yesterday, as you mentioned, we'll get into it, but how he said it was something you don't hear from athletes. And one of the lines he used that we'll get into that you don't hear a lot from athletes. You certainly didn't. You certainly didn't back in my generation that you do now, or you heard from LeBron and others following suit.
So we will play those for you as the morning goes on. We also have a lot of sports of the more normal variety. And let's start it with Off the Top, as we do every day. And it begins, Mike, with Giancarlo Stanton, who's on the verge of making this a very interesting September. He homered in his 6th consecutive game. He's starting to really climb, Mike, into numbers that are going to make us start having a lot of conversation.
Sure is. It's his 23rd home run in the last 35 games, making him the 4th player in Major League Baseball history to hit 23 home runs in a 35-game span in a single season. Here's the other 3. See what they have in common. Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire. That's the problem that Stanton is going to have, is all the people he is chasing or in conversation with all have that cloud over their head. And for Stanton, as I said, Stanton has always been a large human being. I'm sure there are some that think that he is on PEDs, and he get tested more than they obviously ever have in the game now. But his name is always going to be put next to those names because those are the numbers he's going after. He's on pace for 61 home runs. 61 home runs in a pace and in a number that doesn't get the love it used to get and won't. But I'm sure he wants to, while he's in the list with those people, wants to separate himself from those people and how he's doing it.
And I'll be very curious to see how people react if he does start getting towards 60 and whether people will start cheering for him to potentially be the clean home run champion. And if he were to hit 62 at a time where, as you point out, they are tested more vigorously than at any time before, you can have whatever suspicions you want about anyone, I guess, in this day and age. That's just part and parcel of it. But if he starts getting to 62, I believe there will be people who will start trying to create a debate to make him the clean home run champion.
Yeah, and they'll fail. That won't happen. It's not going to happen.
It won't be in the record books.
No, the number is going to be the number, right.
But will it be in some people's minds?
Oh, it already would be. Yes, it absolutely would be in some people's minds, but how much that matters, I really don't know.
Off the Top.
Another guy hitting a lot of home runs is Aaron Judge, but that's not the only thing he's doing a lot of, and he's on the verge of setting a record like that. Yeah. I mean, you don't want any part of, but I think that the way we view it has changed. Tell everyone what the record is.
Well, yeah, I mean, now it's a home run or a strikeout, and for Stanton, it's been a home run, and for Aaron Judge, it's been a strikeout. He struck out for the 32nd consecutive game, moving him into a tie with Adam Dunn in 2012 for the longest single-season streak by a non-pitcher. So that's where he is right now, 32 straight games, tied with Dunn. Only ahead of him are 2 pitchers. Vida Blue in 1971 struck out in 34 consecutive games, and Bill Stoneman in 1971, 35. Amazing it's the same year that it was 34 and 35. Judge not far from that is taking over even pitchers as well. Since the All-Star, since the Home Run Derby, let's put it that way, since everybody talks about that, Judge is at 6 home runs, Stanton 18. Judge has struck out 49 times, Stanton 31. Judge is batting 175. Stanton is batting 309.
175.
175.
Yeah, I mean, that's a glaring number. And 49 strikeouts in how many games? How many games have they played? Give me quickly, Hembo, when you can, how many games we're talking about since the All-Star break. 49 strikeouts. That's a lot.
Off the Top.
Of strikeouts. Elsewhere, the Dodgers win because they're the Dodgers, and that's what they do.
Dodgers reaching 50 games over 500. They're 84 and 34. First team to reach that mark at any point of the season since the 04 Cardinals. First time the Dodgers have reached that mark since 1953, and the earliest they've ever done it in a season. So they're on a great pace right now. Fewest home games. They've also, in the number 50, they have 50 home wins. The fewest home games to win 50 games still goes to the 98 Yankees. They took was 62 games. The 75 Reds, the 63 games. Those two teams have in common. And then it's the Dodgers and the Red Sox and the Phillies of the 78 and 77 to do it in 64 games. So they are on fire. Yu Darvish takes the mound again. He's had 2 starts with them, and he's gone 10 more plus strikeouts in both starts. Oh, by the way, in his 22 starts with the Rangers, he had 4 games of 10-plus strikeouts. He's trying to go 3 for 3 here with the Dodgers.
I really wonder how much the consideration of being traded was weighing on him and his performance because he's been lights out since he got dealt. And then finally, the NFLPA did officially appeal Zeke Elliott's 6-game suspension, saying it will represent Zeke, quote, to ensure the NFL is held to its obligation of adhering to principles of industrial due process under the collective bargaining agreement. They schedule the hearing for the end of August. Mike, what is your, I know everyone hates guessing.
Yeah.
Best guess, when this thing gets resolved, will there be any change in his 6-game suspension?
I don't think so, no. I think in part because it goes back to the people who punished him. It goes back to Roger Goodell or his designee in that, whoever he chooses.
I think it's a guy named Harold Henderson
has been a guy that's done that in the past. And unless there is new evidence, we have heard they have been very, forthcoming, has Zeke's side and what they're going to. It's not going to be contrite and apologize. It's going to be, you're wrong about this, and here's why. So unless there's new evidence, and that's what I don't know, and that's the X factor in all this. If there's new things that they're going to show the NFL that the NFL didn't have, then there's a possibility. But for as long as that investigation was, and it seems as exhaustive as that investigation was, it will be interesting. I don't know if they're going to put new information in front of the league. So if they don't, I don't know why the league would knock it down in games.
Off the top.
And that is Off the Top with Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. You can test drive Snapshot to see how much you could save before switching to Progressive. Visit progressive.com/snapshot. By the way, I got the number for you here. 30 games since the All-Star break for Aaron Judge, and he has struck out 49 times. So even I can tell that's more than 1.5 strikeouts
a lot
per game. Yeah. By the way, in the 1936 season, Joe DiMaggio struck out 39 times for the entire year. And that was the most he ever struck out in a season. So Aaron Judge has struck out 49 times in his last 30 games. Basically in a month, Aaron Judge has struck out 49 times, 10 more strikeouts than Joe DiMaggio ever had in a season in his career.
Yeah, that's not a direction he wants to go. And on the other side of that, with the home runs, one of the first tweets I got at ESPN Golic from Jana, the MLB home run record is still 61.
So well, I think there are a lot of people who view it that way.
They're absolutely, that's my point. The first one I got said that. No one is going to give anybody any other credit outside of the 61 in Maris and the 61. That's where it's going to be. So will you feel if Stanton hit 62 that he broke the record? Do you feel Stanton is in the group that should, or are you saying he's still in this era and we're still suspicions of everybody who's hitting long home runs, so we're giving nobody the benefit of the doubt? And if that's the case, that means 61 will be the record forever and ever and ever.
No, I don't view it that way.
I don't know. I wonder what Jana thinks.
Well, let me
tweet us back.
Let me represent my client, Jana.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the way I view it. The era in which Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, and Barry Bonds were hitting all their home runs was essentially the wild, wild west of Major League Baseball's history.
I agree.
We are no longer in that time.
Nope.
Now, can we say with certainty that there are no performance-enhancing drugs in the sport? Obviously not.
No.
And can we say with certainty that Stanton is not using any? No, we can't say that with certainty. But we can say with certainty that he is and has undergone a level of drug testing that wasn't even in consideration at the time that McGuire, Sosa, and Bonds were hitting their home runs. So I do believe there is a level of legitimacy to what he is doing that I do not attach to what happened in the 90s. Now, that said, will I say this is the new home run record? Mm-hmm. I can't say that.
No.
I can't.
No.
Because if at the same time I'm going to say these games counted in the 90s, that I want Sosa, well, maybe not Sosa, but I want Bonds in the Hall of Fame, certainly Bonds, that if I'm going to say that, then I cannot just say, and his record shouldn't count.
Right, it's exactly right.
There'll be some mental asterisk next to it for the end of time, until the end of time. But until someone in this era of drug testing hits 74 home runs in a season, which will probably never happen,
right,
then that is going to remain the record.
Yeah, it is going to remain the record, but the public record, according to Jana, is 61. So I would ask that person if Stanton hits 62. In your mind, is he the new home run king? Or are you discounting anybody during this time? I mean, and everybody gets their own opinion about it. I mean, that's what life's about.
What's yours?
Well, mine is exactly as yours. 73 is the record. It is the record. I get why people say 61 is until someone clean does it, but you're assuming a lot of things from back in the day to now as well. So that's the record books say it's 73. And I have said it all along, before you even said it, those guys should be in the Hall of Fame. I would put them in the Hall of Fame. You want to put, as Bob Costas says, a letter, a note, something. You want to distinguish it somehow, some way. I don't care. I'm not talking about like an asterisk. I'm talking about something that explains the era, that we all know what took place in the era. That's fine, but those are the numbers.
But would we put that notation – see, here's the thing. Would we put that notation specifically on the plaque of those who tested positive?
Absolutely not.
Then we put it on the plaque of everyone who played in that era.
No, I don't put it on anybody's plaque.
Oh, then where are you putting this notation?
It's a museum.
Oh, just somewhere in the building. In
the museum, they go through eras, right?
Yes.
So when you're through an era, you can have any kind of note you want. This was also an era where everybody was juicing. I mean, however you want. You don't have to attach it to.
This was the
plaque.
Paleolithic era of Major League Baseball, where players were using the cream and the clear.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's the way things were going at that point. Look, that is the lasting shame of the steroid era of Major League Baseball, is that it took one of the great things in sports, which were home run records and home run chases, and made them feel meaningless.
It was one of the great
or
things
dirty
we had in all of sports. All of sports was home run hitters.
I mean, I would put that record, the record that Babe Ruth held forever, that Hank Aaron then broke, the Aaron breaking of it and then Aaron holding it. Those were the best things in sports. Certainly the biggest records in sports, the biggest numbers in sports. Everybody knew the number 714. Everybody knew the number 755. Walk up to a baseball fan or any person in the street and say, how many home runs did Barry Bonds hit in his career, and see how many of them get it right. Now, the one record that I think could fall, and probably will eventually fall, is Bonds' career home run record. Someone will come along and hit 763 and 800 and whatever it is. I remember you and I went on the David Letterman show one time and said Alex Rodriguez will eventually break that record and become the clean home run champion.
And everybody will be championing A-Rod to break that record.
We got like a standing ovation.
Where did that fall apart?
At the Ed Sullivan Theater.
Wow.
And, yeah, I'm glad that.
Yeah.
We've brought that back over the years. We've come back and played that tape again. Because, look, it was what it was. It was what it was. And hopefully we'll never be saying the same things about the home run hitters of today, about the young guys like Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton and people like that. Hopefully they will bring some credibility and some feeling that you have about the home run records that has been lost. And maybe they will make it for another generation feel the way it felt for our generation growing up.
It will be. We know the two guys we're talking about now with Bryce Harper and Mike Trout.
Right.
Where will these guys be? You're talking 10, 15 years from now. What will their number be?
Stanton, too, right? Put Stanton in
How old is Stanton compared to those guys? He's now... What? So Bryce is 20?
I think he hasn't turned 25 yet.
Hasn't turned 25.
And Trout, I think, is 26.
26.
I think this is his age 26 season.
I don't think Stanton's much older than that.
Hembo will get him for us.
Yeah,
Go ahead, jump on Hembo.
27.
Stanton is 27.
Okay.
And how many home runs does he have in his career?
252 now.
252.
And Trout has 191. And Harper, we know, just hit his 150th.
His 150th.
So, yeah, you're right. Stanton as well.
Stanton's, look, I mean, at the rate he's hitting them at this minute, it's kind of hard to discount.
Yeah, I would agree.
So that was a topic that I actually thought I was going to save for a little later this morning, but it kind of worked its way in there nicely, organically, and I'm pleased that it did. So let's give him in the zone. Right now, no one is in a zone quite like Giancarlo Stanton. In the zone, brought to you by AutoZone. Drive the new Duralast GT brake pads, proven tough from the tracks to the streets and sold only at AutoZone. Get in the zone. AutoZone. In fact, Giancarlo Stanton has been so good of late that Jeff Passan yesterday wrote the Marlins should trade him immediately. That was did you see that column yesterday?
Yeah, I did.
That was Passan's take on it yesterday, that they should trade him immediately, that in order to rebuild the franchise, and we'll see, maybe Derek Jeter, when he takes over, this will be one of the things that he decides to do, but one of the first things that they could do is trade Giancarlo Stanton for a bevy of riches to one of the big rich teams out there and try and build your entire team. Jeff Passan wrote, every day that goes by with Giancarlo Stanton in a Miami Marlins uniform is a wasted opportunity for a franchise begging to be run properly. And after years of the most feckless ownership group in baseball, alienating an entire metropolitan area with lies, mismanagement, and a seeming contempt for decency, its going away present to new ownership should be to either trade Stanton now or lay the groundwork for a deal to come in the offseason.
Feckless?
Feckless.
What is feckless?
Feckless is like it's not ruthless. It's like uncaring. Feckless is non. What's the word I would use?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
It's not responsible. I don't know. Like
the definition of feckless is lacking initiative or strength of character. Irresponsible.
Okay. Yeah. Feckless. You've never heard feckless?
Never in my life. I've heard freckles.
Well, they're very similar.
Are they?
Actually, many with freckles
are
have been
feckless?
known to be feckless.
Feckless freckler.
For the next 16 days, Jeff Passan wrote, the Marlins can present contending teams with an alluring possibility. Trade for the hottest hitter alive. A 6'6", 250-pound machine who's 10 home runs in his last 11 games, and by the way, he's now hit another. Give him a Major League Baseball leading 43 for this season. Stanton cleared waivers on Sunday, multiple sources told Yahoo, allowing the Marlins to deal him to any team through the end of August.
Would you?
Well, would I trade him?
Would you trade him?
I'd have to hear what the deal is.
I mean,
his deal was $275 for 10 years, right?
It was
his
contract $325.
He had $295.
Sorry, $325. Sorry.
Oh, short him $50 million.
Sorry, my bad. $325. He has 10 years and $295 million left on his contract. Let me say that again. He has 10 years and $295 million left on his contract.
One thing I'll say is he's 27. I don't mind that big deal. So going to a younger player. So, listen, I will step aside to the baseball, minds here. If you think this is a smart move, is there also something to having a guy that people want to come to the park to see? Because that park brings in tens of people. Okay, so and I know that guy's hitting home runs now, and not many more are coming in, or maybe more will. I don't know, but is that something that would be on Derek Jeter's mind, who is going to run the team? Is we need that guy. We need a guy, a great guy. I mean, a guy that is well respected. People like. I mean, looks fantastic.
There's nothing not to love about
exactly
Giancarlo
right.
Stanton.
I mean, and then you're changing ownership. What baseball fan, even a Marlin fan, isn't going to be excited that Derek Jeter will be running that team? Isn't Stanton a guy that you want as, here is our poster guy, here is our guy, putting his picture up everywhere and come see him? Or does he bring you such a bevy that it will really change your fortunes?
Those are the decisions that basically the fortunes of baseball franchises rest upon. We'll see what Derek Jeter decides to do.
The best of Mike and Mike.
If you want to have dinner with Golic, I think I have a way you might be able to do it. Details in a moment. First, our straight talk. Kirk Cousins. I like guys in sports who bet on themselves.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a good thing. And it's actually advice that I've given to a lot of young people who've been entering in this business or anyone else who asks for my advice. Particularly when it's someone in another field of endeavor, where I say to them, listen, I don't really know how to. I had a young person that I'm pretty close to, a family friend with, telling me he was facing sort of a crossroads decision in his career. And he explained to me the two roads he might take. And I said, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't have any way of advising you on one versus the other because I don't really understand the particulars. But my advice, if you believe in yourself, is bet on the one where you have the bigger upside based on your own success, based on your own ability to do it. Bet on yourself. And so we've seen a lot of athletes do it over the years, and certainly, I'm sure, and a lot of times it's bit them in the butt. People have turned down guaranteed money, the bird in the hand, if you will, and they wound up losing their shirt over it. And then there's Joe Flacco, who has one of the great postseasons of all time and makes a fortune doing it.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins is that guy right now. Kirk Cousins, we don't know exactly what they were offering him in Washington, but he could already have signed a huge contract. Huge. But he's holding out, counting on having one more season and thus becoming the richest quarterback in NFL history. If he has a good year, he doesn't have to have the best year in the world. He just has to have another good, solid year, and he'll be the richest quarterback in history.
I mean, understand what Greeny is saying. I mean, the last 2 years, he's going to have been guaranteed and made $44 million. Any deal he signs, he may not get Andrew Luck guaranteed money, but he's going to get 60, 70 million guaranteed. Throw that right on top of the 40 he's made in the last 2 years, and it's a guy who will have made guaranteed over $100 million.
And as a pure unrestricted free agent, he might get to Andrew Luck money, and that's the interesting side of this, which is
I don't think he will, but I understand.
None of the big quarterbacks have ever gotten to that stage.
Right.
Andrew Luck, they were bidding against themselves.
Right.
There was no one else could sign Luck. No one else could sign any of these other guys. These teams never let their quarterbacks get there.
away, right.
So this will be an unprecedented circumstance. What will the market say in a world where teams are pulling Jay Cutler out of the broadcast booth? What will 5 different teams bidding for Kirk Cousins net you? Well, one way or the other. Cousins said something yesterday that was a little bit of a surprise. He said he doesn't want to go anywhere.
I would love to be. If you could say draw it up, I'd be a Redskin the rest of my career. When you look at the best of the best, those quarterbacks played with one team. And if you pointed a couple guys who didn't, who changed teams, it really was against their will. I think if Joe Montana or Peyton Manning had their way, they would have stayed where they had won Super Bowls and played so well, wouldn't have had to leave. So my desire is to stay with one team my entire career, and that would be Washington.
I get it, and he's right about. I think he's absolutely right about Peyton Manning and can't believe I forgot the other
Montana
guy. And Montana.
Brett Favre.
Yeah,
I'm
he's
throwing
right
in
about
Favre in that conversation.
I get what he's saying, and I think it's a good thing to say when you're going to be playing for that team this year as well. So I don't have a problem with saying, and his general thought process, I think, is a good one.
I like a guy betting on himself. Mike and Mike, Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. We are Mike and Mike. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Shell Pennzoil Performance Line today. Marcus Mariota will join us in the next hour. Quarterback of the Titans. They may be headed for a very good year. Will Kane today. The Hasselbeck brothers both in our studio today. Sean McVay, young coach of the Los Angeles Rams, will join us as well. Okay, would you like to have dinner with Mike Golic? You probably can, but you better have some pull, and you'd better do it quickly. A pop-up restaurant devoted to Cheetos opened last night in Tribeca, which is downtown Manhattan, for those of you who don't know. It is called the Spotted Cheetah. It opened with a waiting list of more than 1,000 people. It is a 3-day pop-up eatery led by celebrity chef Ann Burrell, serving a bevy of dishes featuring the orange puffed snack that is loved by some and loathed by everyone else. There were 300 reserved spots. They were snatched up within 6 hours of the announcement of its opening. So, Golic, let me give you a little taste of what's on this menu, and you tell me if these sound good to you or bad. The items on the menu run from $8 to $22. They include a flamin' hot and white cheddar mac and Cheetos.
Yes.
Cheetos meatballs.
Yes.
Cheetos grilled cheese.
Yes.
Cheetos crusted fried pickles.
Yes.
These are all things on there, among many others. First of all, do you like Cheetos? Are you
Love
a Cheeto guy? You do.
Cheetos.
I don't like Cheetos.
The cheese that goes crunch.
I don't like them. I don't
don't?
like Cheetos. No, I do not like
there's
stuff
none. There's
that
a
winds up
stunner.
on your fingers.
You don't like the taste of something because your fingers turn a little orange.
They don't turn a little orange. They turn very orange, and they stink for the rest of the day.
They do not stink for the rest of the day. They taste good for the rest of the day.
I'm not walking around tasting my fingers for the rest of the day. How often do you walk around tasting your fingers?
When I have Cheetos and or cheese popcorn on them, which is every time I go through O'Hare as well. With Nuts on Clark, I get the cheese popcorn.
He really does. He loves that.
I love it.
But so what do you think? Would you be interested?
Oh, my. Are you interested? Are you kidding me?
What kind of wine do you think goes with that? Like, do they have a sommelier? I'm curious to know, is there a sommelier at the Spotted Cheetah? And if so, if you were to call the sommelier over and say, pardon me, I'm having the Cheetos grilled cheese with a side of the Cheetos crusted fried pickles. What goes nicely with that?
I would say, Mr. Greenberg, this box of Sham Pipple. Okay? Be a box of champagne and Ripple. Okay? So you're either getting a box of wine or you're getting a bottle that has a twist off. Okay? And that's it.
I mean, don't knock the twist off. A lot of very good wines. They have Cheetos Sweetos crusted cheesecake for dessert, Cheetos Sweetos sweet and salty cookies, and white cheddar Cheetos and Cheetos Sweetos apple crepes.
Everything is good with a little Cheetos on it. Not Cheetos dust.
If you can get a table, it's a 3-night pop-up. You got tonight and tomorrow. Golic will join you.
I'll bring the beer.
If you got any pull, let him know. Bring the Sham Pipple.
Well, Greeny, we're halfway through another baseball season, and we're really seeing some players who stand out as winners.
Kind of like business travelers who win at business by staying at La Quinta Inns and Suites.
That's because you can put your La Quinta Returns loyalty points to work on the spot with instant free nights.
Just drive up with no reservation and instantly redeem points for a free night that same night simply by using the La Quinta app.
It's like hitting a grand slam.
With an app instead of a bat.
Well played.
Prepare to win at business by learning more about instant free nights and check out the summer rates at lq.com.
Okay, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million. What color is the White House?
I know this.
5 seconds.
Oh, switching to Geico could save you a bunch of money on car insurance?
Okay. Judges? That's true, Kevin. They'll allow it. Congratulations. You're a winner.
Woo!
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Here we are, back and not better than ever. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line as I frantically try and send a note so our staff has some idea what we're planning on doing. We have moved to the chairs.
You don't handle change well, do you, on the fly?
We've had another day where our panel behind us has gone out, so we've had to move over here on the fly, so everything gets moved at once. And it also means it's going to become unbearably cold in here. What happens is that thing overheats.
Yeah, it does.
And as a consequence, they turn the temperature down in here. We have this studio where I believe there are two temperature settings. One of them is unbearably hot, and the other is unbearably cold. And so I believe we were on unbearably hot, and that's why the panel went out. Yeah. Now it'll go to unbearably cold, and we'll be back at the regular chairs in a few minutes.
I think, through our just about 18 years together, we got a couple months left of this thing. I think we both rubbed off on each other a little bit.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm sorry I haven't been able to impress upon you better through that time is the ability to just roll with something. I mean, that happened. We got to start another segment. We're going to be on air. It's going to happen. Let's just do what we got to do. But, I mean, the people that run around the behind the scenes here knowing because they know how frantic you're going to be, so they want to make sure everything is okay is amazing. I just sit back and I take the last 5 seconds to walk over here so I could take the whole picture in. Greeny's going to be upset. Everybody run around like you're doing something. Run around like you're handling this situation so Greeny doesn't get mad. Greeny is upset. Greeny's frantic. Greeny doesn't know what's going on.
I'm not mad.
Not mad.
Mad is the wrong word.
Okay, you're frantic.
I'm aggravated.
Roll with it.
So here's what I would say. My wife Stacy, I think, would describe it this way. Mm-hmm. When things are going well, I'm a delight.
Sure.
No one is more fun to have around than I am. I never show up to well. I mean, I'm fun.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, maybe there are some people who are more fun.
Yeah.
I'm Mr. Fun.
Well,
when times are good, I'm exactly who you want on your side. When things go wrong, I'm a hindrance.
Yeah.
I'm not a help.
All you've talked to in the 18 years is the amount of therapy you've been in. Have you ever discussed this with your therapist?
Yes, of course I've discussed this with my therapist.
Boy, I tell you what, that therapist is getting rich and not helping you.
Listen, she's living on my island right now.
Wow.
It's now called Diane Land instead of Greeny Land. All right. You think I'm the one in therapy? Golic's the one who wants to eat in the restaurant where they serve nothing but Cheetos.
What's wrong with that?
Again, this is not made up. This is real. This is a pop-up restaurant in Tribeca called, I would know what it was called, except that my notes are all sitting over there. The Spotted Cheetah.
Here we go.
Which is every dish is made with Cheetos.
Has some sort of Cheetos type product. Remember, it's the cheese that goes crunch.
It's disgusting. Gabby tweets at us, I'm with Greeny. Cheetos in this restaurant, ugh. How about I'm about to dry heave. I wouldn't want to waste a good box of Champipple.
Well, there you go. The Champipple is key. And all I have to say to Gabby is I'm glad you don't want to go. That's one more chance I may have to get a seat there.
Right now, the seats went fast. If you have a reservation that place tonight, get in touch with us. Golic will go with you.
I'll buy it.
David Schneider tweets, trick to eating Cheetos. Smash them inside the bag before you open it, then open and pour into your mouth.
I've done that.
Thus, no cheesy fingers.
It's like when you get to the bottom of a bag of chips or something. Sometimes the chips on the bottom are a little smashed up, so you just kind of dump the rest in your mouth. It's very nice. I've tried that with the entire bag just for a variety. I don't like it as much. I do like the individual chip and or Cheeto in this case for the crunch factor of it. But it is a way to not get your fingers cheesy and orange.
We do have a bag of Cheetos coming for you, I'm told.
All right.
Luigi tweets, I feel as if a nice box of Franzia would go nicely with that meal. Class it up a little, fellas. And then Wolfgang tweets at us, this past weekend, my 2-year-old cousin.
Wolfgang Puck?
In this particular case, I don't believe so, no.
I'm just wondering. Listen, we're talking about food. I thought maybe he'd chime in.
Sure. Is that the only Wolfgang you're familiar with?
Pretty much.
Okay. Anyway, this
Isn't there a guy named Mozart?
Yeah, except for Mozart.
Yeah.
Okay. And I believe Eddie Van Halen named his son Wolfgang also, if I'm not mistaken.
But again, friends, we go with Wolfie.
Yeah. So Wolfie writes, this past weekend, my 2-year-old cousin was eating Cheetos so fast that she eventually mistook her finger for a Cheeto and cried.
Happened. I've done that. I've done that at 20, let alone 2. I know what you mean.
All right. Meanwhile, let me give you an update. We'll get back to the home run thing in just a second, but let's do an update. If someone has the ability to play one of our walking songs. Chris Golic at ND Mom is walking 317 miles from Vincennes, Indiana to South Bend, Indiana.
Yeah, the 175th year anniversary of Notre Dame. The founder, Father Soren, that was the last 317 miles he walked before he hit the grounds of South Bend and said this is where Notre Dame is going to be. There are 32 people that are retracing those steps. So she has put an element into it to raise some money for the Center for the Homeless in South Bend. She has a GoFundMe page at ND Mom, and everybody has been so nice in donating to that. It's such a great place that we have, and especially Chris has helped a lot in South Bend. So it's really close to her heart there, and so I appreciate everybody helping there. But it's a very cool thing for a lot of Notre Dame people, and today is day 3. It is a 24-mile bike ride, which they are currently on, and then an 8-mile walk. So it's kind of flipped, more bike riding today than walking. Most of the time, it will be walking.
And we just put a nice picture up for those of you watching on TV that Chris had up on her. I'm not sure if that was Instagram or Twitter, but they're both at ND Mom, and she looks great, and she's doing well. I mean, I trust you're talking to her.
I talk to her constantly. The main word, physically, she can do this. She is one who is just wanted challenges, and since kind of the kids have gone off on their own a little bit, she's kind of looked for challenges. Because somebody asked her one time, what are you going to do now that the kids are gone? She said, something will find me. She said, I'm looking for the challenges, and they have come up. It was amazing. Not long after that was an email from the NFL on getting involved in youth football. Something, she has never been out front in public as a speaker, and talking to people, and she ends up running these clinics and emceeing these clinics and being out in front of people. So it was out of her comfort zone. We had a list of things for her to kind of do, like adventurous things like whitewater rafting. We went zip lining in Costa Rica we went there with the Perianos. So things like that that have come up. And this was another one of them. This kind of presented itself, and she said, I want that challenge. I want something, to really challenge me and to do. And I said, well, you're a way better person than me, because there's no way on God's green earth I could do that. I couldn't. So that's kind of how she's going about it. And then she wants to turn them into, hopefully, to raise some money for some issues. Ran the New York City Marathon. She had never run a marathon before, and by the way, never will again. But she did it that one time. So that's kind of what she's doing now. And I found real quickly the first fly in the ointment of this. She's gone for 13 days.
Right.
And so I'm home with the dog. So, again, the dogs are cleaning the plates, and the place is a mess until she's going to come back. But that's a given. That there's nothing wrong with that.
The dogs are cleaning the place? I don't know what that means.
Cleaning the plates.
Cleaning the plates?
Plates that I use. They just lick them, and I put them back. We've discussed that when she's gone.
Yes, I remember that. But, I mean, I okay.
Yeah, I mean, we've been down this road, but a new wrinkle has been added. The first day she was gone, and I'm obviously getting the mail every day, there were like 2 bills. She's gone for 2 weeks. I said, Chris, bills are coming in. You want me to pay them? She's like, no, just let them sit. I'm like, you'd rather not pay the bill than have me find the checkbook. And I said, fine, because I don't know where it is, and write a check and pay a bill? She's like, just leave them.
Have you seriously not written a check in 30 years?
No, I've written a check. I've written a couple of checks.
So she will rip one off and hand it to you?
She will give me, if I have to go somewhere with a check, she will give me a check. And she says, if you ruin it, you don't get it.
If you ruin it.
It really is. It's pretty much, and I know how to fill out a check, but yes, she will rip off and physically give me one check. She will not give me the checkbook. She will give me a check. So, yeah, she does the bills, and a lot of them are online. The bigger ones are online and stuff, but there are ones that aren't, and she won't let me pay them. And I don't know where the checkbook is to pay them. I mean, I'm living on a wing and a prayer, hoping the power doesn't get shut off.
So the really good thing you can do is just make sure you don't lose the Bills over the course of the next 13 days.
The best thing I can do is have everything stacked up for her when she gets home.
Keep them in one neat pile. That's exactly what she needs when she comes home from a 317-mile walk. Is a pile of bills waiting for her in the house. Twitter reaction to our question, one of the questions of the day. Giancarlo Stanton is currently on pace to hit 61 home runs. I have a question on my Twitter page, a poll question, which I've pinned to the top of my page, which is, if Stanton hits 62 home runs this season, would you consider it the single-season record?
Again, he's on pace for 61.
No one is debating whether it will be the official record. Right. We all understand that isn't going to happen, right. And I don't believe that single-season record will be broken in our lifetime. I don't think anyone is going to hit 74 home runs. But someone will hit 62, and it could be Stanton this year. Yeah. Would you consider that to be the new record? You can cast your vote. And some of the reaction coming in, Germ tweets at us, steroids saved baseball. Major League Baseball would be the NHL if not for McGuire and Sosa. It got people interested again. What do you think of that?
Well, listen, you can't deny the fact that was an era we were cutting into programming. It was being home runs were being talked about on the news channels, not just ESPN and sports channels, the news channels. That Sosa-McGuire race was as popular as a thing could be in sports. So you can't look on that, to me, and sit there and be unbelievably disgusted, by it and say that was horrible for the game. People loved it. And quite honestly, if it happened, that's the thing about it. What if that happened again? I mean, are we at the point where we wouldn't be? What if Bryce Harper and Mike Trout or Stanton and Judge, if he wasn't striking out all the time,
even if he is striking out all the time,
but we're hitting home runs. What if Judge had 43 right now? What if they both were in the 50s? I mean, it wouldn't be Sosa and McGuire again? I understand that, but would it increase some? Would you get there? Could we get there? Again, it wouldn't be to the level it was. I understand that. But what level could it get to? Because we have that ability. We have that ability with Trout, with Bryce Harper, with Judge now, and certainly with Stanton to maybe get a race like that. Would that be something people would get back into again and want to see all the time?
Would they have to be approaching the record, I guess, is the question. Would people get excited about it in the 50s? Or they have to get into the 60s before people would start getting excited about it. Remember, McGuire and Sosa weren't just hitting home runs simultaneously and in thrilling fashion. They were chasing a record and they were approaching it. And it was a hallowed record.
No, you have to be getting to the record. But in a lot of people's eyes, again, our first tweeter, would it be to 61?
So the answer then is no, for exactly that reason, because it isn't the record.
It isn't the record.
And while some people might view it in their own minds, and that's why I phrased the question that way, would you view it as the record? Because I could understand viewing it as the record, but certainly it isn't.
It's not.
I'm fully cognizant of the fact that it isn't and it won't be and it never will be again. Joseph tweets that at us. The record is the record, and the record is 73. If Stanton hits 62, it will be Stanton hits 62.
Right.
It won't be the record.
Right. That's
All
true.
Right. We're Mike and Mike. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can keep voting on that poll, and we'll see where we get by the end of today's program. Meanwhile, let's do next question. It's brought to you by Indeed.com. Post your next job opening on the world's #1 job site. The staff has put together a variety of questions for us here, and let's go through them one by one. First question: the over/under is 1.5 teams Kirk Cousins will play for in his NFL career. And again, at the end of the previous hour, we played for you the soundbite where he said the great ones are defined in part by having played for only one team. He would love to play for only one team in his entire career and have that be Washington. So the over/under 1.5 Cousins teams. Golic.
Oh, I think he'll be on another team. Even if he signs a deal with Washington, I still think during that deal or at the end of it, he could end up with another team. How old is he, Hembo? If you could get me that.
He was drafted the same year as RG3 and Luck, but I think he's a little older than that.
Right, I think he is a little older than that, yeah. He's 28, so he certainly has plenty of time left. Yes, I think it will be over 1.5, without question.
Turns 29 in 3 days.
I do not see him being, for his entire career, the Washington Redskins quarterback.
The truly great ones are born in August. I totally agree. I believe Kirk Cousins will be the starting quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers next season, a year from now. March of next year, or whenever free agency rolls around. I believe Cousins will be the quarterback of the 49ers. reunited with Kyle Shanahan, so I definitely go over. Next question. Giancarlo Stanton has 44 home runs with 44 games to go. How many will he finish with?
Well, the rate he's going, 88. City won every game.
The second time today you made me laugh.
6 games in a row. He's gone with a home run. He's on pace for 61. You know, just like the Dodgers are on pace now for 115 wins. Do you get what you're on pace for? Do you get ahead of the pace? You sometimes, more often than not, you fall behind that pace. I'm going to say 58.
Well, you took my number. So
really?
Yeah, just so I don't say the exact same number, I'll go one less and go 57. I was going to say 58.
Wow, how about that?
I believe he will fall just short of 60. Where would 58 put him on the all-time list for seasons? Hembo, did Greenberg hit 58? Was that the record?
No relation.
In the American League? Yeah, no relation to me.
Because that would mean there would be an athlete.
I believe that was the left-handed record for Greenberg had the left-handed record for the longest time. How many did he hit?
He hit 58, but he was a righty.
58. He was a righty. So who am I thinking of?
Ryan Howard hit 58 as a lefty recently. Jimmy Fox, Babe Ruth had a season with 59.
Griffey, how many did Griffey hit?
Griffey had as many as 56. He did it twice.
56. Okay. So I believe he will hit 57 and come one short.
Okay.
Next question. Who would be second on your preseason NFL power ranking? Yesterday, the ESPN.com NFL power rankings came out. Everyone would have New England first.
Right.
ESPN.com has Atlanta second, Seattle third, Pittsburgh 4, Green Bay 5. The question becomes,
go ahead.
Who would be your second team?
It would be hard-pressed for me to not still give it to Atlanta. I mean, they have so much firepower. I love their fast, explosive defense as well, though. You know, they can be a little somewhat inconsistent. I love the firepower on offense. I don't see that going away. My issue, quite honestly, you just named the top 5. Where's Oakland?
There's questions on the defense, maybe, Mike?
For Oakland, certainly, that's where the questions are going to be.
I'm saying, so is that why you are they just not as I mean, I agree with you. I think Oakland is the biggest threat. If everything kind of comes together for them, it was coming together. Remember how many games last year Derek Carr pulled out late? The Raiders are 7th on the current.
They're 7th. I get
ranking.
It, but I love the weapons. Defense needs to come along. Carr to stay healthy. But I'd still go Atlanta, too.
I'll agree with you.
I have no problem with that.
They're going to have to overcome that Super Bowl losing hangover, which is so tough for teams to do. But, yes, as of this moment, I would put them second. Next question, fair or unfair comparisons between the Patriots of this season and the Patriots of 07?
It's never unfair to compare teams, the same team. We're not saying of a different team. So I don't have a problem with that. The thing to me is I am amazed the Super Bowl champion and the work they did in the offseason. It is stunning. You never see them that active. And they were unbelievably active bringing players in. So
Brandon Cook, Stephon Gilmore, David Harris. That team in 07 had Randy Moss and Wes Welker. This team has Edelman and Cooks. This team has Gronkowski if he's healthy.
They got Dwayne Allen at tight end. Right. I like him a lot.
And it's insurance if Gronkowski is not able to get it done with the back.
They did a lot of work.
If the question is it fair? Of course it's fair.
Of course it's fair. I mean, we're predicting this team maybe to go 14-2. So that's pretty close to 16-0.
Next question. Good, bad, or ugly? Golf's young stars being buddy-buddy. There was a nice piece in the New York Times about this yesterday. You might have seen it when Justin Thomas won the PGA the other day. A whole bunch of his pals stuck around to congratulate him, including Spieth and Ricky Fowler. This group of those 3 guys in particular, but a lot of these young American players are very close. They're very good friends. Now, back in the day, when Arnold Palmer died, remember we had Jack Nicklaus on, and Jack told us stories about how the two of them would try, in his words, beat each other's brains in on the golf course. Then they would get on Arnold's airplane, and they would fly together to England and play cards, go out to dinner with their wives. So they were good friends. It wasn't as overt. They weren't quite as obvious about it as some of these young guys are now.
Why would I care about that? This is golf.
Well, some people want there to be a little more dislike, a little more animosity, a little more hatred.
Why? Hate in golf? Seriously?
Well, golf hate.
Oh, my God, stop it. I mean, I can understand a sport where, you physically come in contact with your opponent a little bit. Unless somebody's clubbing somebody over the head with a 7-iron because they don't like them. I'm not too worried about if they like each other or not.
Next question.
Do you?
No, I don't. I wanted to try and make an argument, but I don't have any problem with it at all. Next question, true or false? Baseball players should shake hands after games like Little Leaguers do. There was a good story I saw yesterday about the history of how it's really the only sport where you don't see any of that. And as everybody knows, when a baseball game ends, the losing team all runs off and the winning team all runs on, and they have their own, handshake lineup. And in basically every other sport, there is some level of the teams, greeting each other on the field. So true or false, baseball players should shake hands after games?
I'm not. You know what? If for some reason somebody wanted to go out there and do it, they could do it. I'm not forcing anybody to shake hands.
Me neither.
You either do it or you don't.
I think the whole shaking hands after game thing is kind of over. It's kind of overdone.
There are some that in football, someone just run off the field. Not everybody goes over. I did. I do it. I did it.
After every game?
Every game.
How about a particularly painful loss, which you would not ever be inclined to just turn around and walk off?
Always went over and found the guy I played against the most, even if I hated him, out of respect for him playing and what he did. Always. I always did. Not to say I always liked it, but that's something that I always did. So,
last question.
Mm-hmm.
How much would you pay to watch unlimited movies at the theater per month? So I saw, is it Netflix itself that's doing this?
$10.
It's going to be what is it? Movie Pass. If it was at my usual seat, I'd be able to read it for you.
Here we go.
Movie Pass, as Golic is now being offered 2 bags of Cheetos by the Bickler.
Oh, I mean, you want one?
No, I do not, under any circumstances. But hold on. Let's do a demonstration on the Cheetos coming up. The story is Movie Pass is dropping its monthly subscription fee to $9.95.
Right.
So basically, $9.95 for a month. You can go to one movie a day, every single day for a month if you want to. How much would you be willing to pay for that service?
A month?
Yeah.
Well, right now I can pay $9.95.
I get it, but my point is, eventually, if it were to go up, at some point, if a lot of people start doing this, it'll go up. Well, how many movies a month do you go to?
This would be go to a theater, or I could watch on my computer?
No, go to a theater. This is going to a theater.
Oh.
And what is a movie at a theater now? Like $12.95? Ish?
Yeah, it's up there. And then when you buy the food, you got to let me, I'm getting.
But the food isn't included in this.
Oh, I know. That's why I sneak my own in.
Okay.
Oh, should I not have said that?
Yes. The statute of limitations on that is not yet expired. The next time you see Mike Golic at a movie theater, I want him arrested.
If you hear a crinkling, it's a bag of Cheetos in my pants.
How much would you be willing to pay? I mean, at some point, there's a point of diminishing returns. If you go to 2 movies a month, that'd be worth it to you to pay $20.
I'd pay $50.
$50. So you go to that many movies a month.
I would. I would do that.
You would increase your movie frequency.
Yes,
if you already paid it.
Because I would want to make it worth it.
Yeah,
so
I paid it already. I might as well go to the movie.
It's exactly
one
right.
good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
All right, I like that question. I wouldn't pay nearly that much because I just don't go to the movies that often.
The best of Mike and Mike.
It is a delight to welcome our next guest to the program, one of the really terrific young quarterbacks in the National Football League with a team that went out and made some really big moves and a lot of people think could be doing some very interesting things this season. The quarterback of the Tennessee Titans is Marcus Mariota, and he's with us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Good morning, Marcus. Welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Doing well. Marcus, can I first ask, do you like Cheetos?
I'm not a big Cheetos guy.
Thank you.
Really?
Yes, because it's not really a food product. It's just something that's horrible, and
It's not horrible at all. Well, we say that because there's a eatery in New York that opened up for 3 days, and everything on the menu is based. They make it with Cheetos.
Interesting.
Yeah. Not especially, actually, Marcus.
All right, so I got 2 guys that are big Cheeto fans.
It's nice of you to sort of put up with that question, but the reality is it isn't as interesting as that. Okay, let's get down to business here. Last year, as we watched you play and we watched your progression, we saw you doing it without a lot of weapons on the outside, not to knock the people who you had there, but your primary weapon every time I saw you appeared to be Delaney Walker. Now you go out and you make some big moves during the offseason with the drafting of Corey Davis, and you go out and you bring in Eric Decker. So as you work your way through camp and into this preseason, how different should we expect the offense to look with those guys on the outside?
You know what? I think, with those guys, we added another dimension, and, we're very excited to have them. I think Dak has done a great job of being a veteran presence for that group. I think it's a young group overall, but to have somebody that's, played at the highest level, played with a guy like Peyton Manning, a lot of these young guys can learn from him. And then you add someone like Corey and Taywan, just very dynamic players. I think these guys can really make an impact and help us out.
putting some excellent pieces around you. As Greeny mentioned, the O-line, you have a couple of bookend Pro Bowlers on the offensive line, and offensive line has been such the sexy talk the last couple of years, and your guys' O-line is right there near the top. So the pieces are there. You have certainly improved since you've come into the league. In your mind, what have you improved most at, and where do you still need to go?
Well, I think just an understanding of the game. I think week in and week out in college, the complexities of the defenses, aren't as tough as when you step into the league. And that challenge that you have to face week in and week out. It's fun, but I've learned a lot, about what coverages we might expect, how to prepare our protections and do certain things like that, maybe what to get in and get out of. So I've learned a lot from that aspect, and hopefully I can continue to grow in that area and just be the best player that I can be for these guys.
Marcus Mariota is with us. So much was made when you came out of college, and so many others, young quarterbacks now coming out of non-traditional offenses in college, which really are the norm now on the college level, about the difficulties of transitioning to the NFL. You mentioned reading defenses. How about all the other elements of it? Take us through some of the challenges of that, of learning to call plays, of learning some of the complexities of your own offense and communicating those to your teammates. How quickly were you able to pick that up, and how much easier is it for you now going into year 3 than it was even a year ago?
Well, I think I was very fortunate with the staff that I had at Oregon. Coach Helfrich and the guys, we ran a spread option offense, but at the same time, a lot of our passing game, a lot of the different schemes when we run the football are stuff that are really pro concepts. And so when I got to this level, really for me, it was just learning a different language. I could really compare and just kind of find what we did at Oregon and use that as a learning tool. And I think that really eased my transition. But you know what? After a couple of years and then going into year 3, you just feel a lot more comfortable. And I think that's just in any setting, whatever it is you're doing. So I was very fortunate. I think I had a lot of people around me that made my transition a whole lot easier, and if we can continue to get better.
So going into year 3, let's go back to year 1 and preseason game 1, and I make the correlation to this past preseason, first preseason game. You had a Mitchell Trubisky who played well with the Bears after just 13 starts in college. Deshaun Watson had a great college career. He plays well. Deshaun Kaiser for the Browns plays well. And all of a sudden, fans and people start saying, wow, maybe they should be moving up the depth chart and seeing the field earlier. Talk about that first preseason game for you and the differences from them going on and why maybe people should pull the reins back a little bit.
I think going into your first preseason game, any rookie quarterback, you're just kind of swimming. You're going through, the time where you have a bunch of installs. You're kind of just trying to keep your head above water. So you got to give a credit to those guys that have played well going into their first preseason game. At the same time, though, I think you'll realize when you get into the regular season, it's a different ball game. Preseason is an opportunity to see what you have. There's not a whole lot going on schematically. You're just kind of seeing what you have in terms of talent and what you have is, a team. And then from there, when you get to the regular season, then you kind of throw in all your wrinkles and do all those kinds of stuff. So you got to tip your hat to those guys. I thought they all played well. At the same time, they got to continue to get better and don't get complacent. And, when the season rolls around, hopefully they'll be prepared and ready to go.
One of the topics of conversation that comes up, Marcus Mariota of the Titans is with us, is the value of these preseason games, especially at a time where it is becoming more and more commonplace for teams to practice together and get several days of work together and perhaps, as Mike was saying yesterday, get more valuable work for the guys who are going to be playing in when the season actually gets underway than they do. How much value do you think that these preseason games have? And if they were to remove one or even two of them, how much of an impact do you think that would have on your preparation?
Well, I think the preseason is an opportunity to get some of the rust off. I mean, including myself. Last week was the first time in really six months since we had played, and little things like looking at the play clock. Little things like just getting in and out of the huddle. Those things you don't really get that in practice. You can't really simulate those things, and those are things that you got to just kind of work through. And I think that's the benefit of having the preseason games. We're excited. We actually have Carolina coming in this week today, and we're looking forward to getting some work done with those guys. And I think it's a great opportunity when you have the chance to practice against another team. You get to learn a lot. You get to learn a lot about their defense, and you get to learn about how you can maybe you're playing a similar defense throughout the year. What might work, what might not work. So this is a great opportunity for us, and we're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, one more for me, Marcus. NFL drafts tend to be defined by the quarterbacks when there are multiple quarterbacks that go early. And, of course, your year, Jameis Winston, and you were at the top of that draft. How competitive are you with him? I don't know much about the relationship, but you, of course, went through the whole draft process together. You will probably be compared to each other throughout your careers. How cognizant are you of that, and how aware are you of what he does as the season goes on?
Honestly, I learned a long time ago you can't compare yourself to another player. I think you end up losing sight of you being the best player that you can be. And, Jameis and I, we worked out together throughout that whole combine process. I got to know him. We had a lot of fun competing during our workouts. But now that we're on our separate teams, I really focus on what I can do here in Tennessee. And, just wish him all the best. But, my main focus is being the best player for these guys here.
Everybody looks at you, looks up to you as a ball player, and you're so one of the nicest and most respected ball players, taking time to sign autographs for kids. So you're kind of looked to as that athlete. How about we spin it? Talk about being a fan. Seeing you and your old lineman buddies at the Predator games when they were making their run, looked like you guys were having a ball. Talk about that experience.
Oh, it was a blast. We're thankful the Preds had us over, and man, we had a lot of fun. It's fun to kind of witness those sporting events live, and to be able to do it with a bunch of great guys. I really enjoyed it, and hopefully as years go by, we'll be able to go out there and continue to watch those guys.
Yeah, and maybe they'll be coming to watch
Maybe you can invite them to watch you guys.
Absolutely.
We enjoyed this very much. Congratulations on everything. Best of luck as your season gets underway. We'll talk down the road. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcus.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys.
Hey, everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Here we are. I mean, the entire day has just gotten completely away from us. We're not in our regular seats. I'm totally uncomfortable over here.
Roll with the punches, man.
I don't like it. I've never rolled with the punches before. I'm not going to start now. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests appear on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line unless they appear in these red seats.
They're orange, and Will Kane is just ignoring us.
We got sitting over here.
The dude
Will
is
Kane
just taking care of business on the phone, on his phone, like you wouldn't believe.
Will Kane has made his way here biding his time till first take. That's pretty much what it is.
No,
I
am
have nothing
prepped.
better to do here.
I'm nervous about what you're going to bring to me, what your rebuttal might be, how I'm going to be prepared for it. This is business, baby, right here.
The first thing I'm bringing to you is, do you like Cheetos?
Cheetos are one of those things I like, but I don't eat. And that's a long list of things that, just because I like it doesn't mean I eat it.
Why don't you, every now and then, you won't have a bag of Cheetos?
My kids eat Cheetos.
Okay.
I may sneak one off their plate.
Okay.
Not a bag. That's not happening.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it because you don't like getting the orange stuff on your fingers?
No, that's actually, I would suggest, part of the enjoyable part.
There you go.
I don't see you as a
it's
finger
over,
licker.
but it's not over thing.
Exactly. We just had Marcus Mariota on. He said he does not like Cheetos, and I just said I am now rooting for the Texans. I can't root for a man that doesn't like Cheetos.
Mike W.
The cheese that goes crunch.
To add to the things I'm nervous about now, I have no idea how I'm going to offend you. Cheetos is a low threshold.
Mike W. tweets, I think Golic could be onto something with his edible chopsticks idea. Matt Casey tweets, if you prefer puffy Cheetos over crunchy, you are a person not to be trusted.
No, I like the puffy. I like everything cheese related. My number one would probably be cheese popcorn, as long as it's really cheesy. But I will take Cheetos over the cheese puffs.
That guy that tweeted you, I mean, he's got his priorities straight. I mean, a puffy Cheeto is nothing compared to the crunchy Cheeto.
And
nothing.
And you buy a bag, whether it's a bigger bag than this, of any kind of snack product, it is half air. This, I'm telling you, I'm into product over 3/4 of the way up. The value you get in a bag of Cheetos is second to none.
All right, let's move on.
Why?
We've got a Twitter poll working here this morning, and I've got 8,700 votes on it as we've gotten started here. Giancarlo Stanton hit another home run yesterday. He's at 44. He has 44 to play. He's on pace to hit 61. My poll question on Twitter is, if Giancarlo Stanton hits 62 home runs this season, would you consider it the record? We know it will not be considered the record. That's not what I'm asking. I'm not asking, should it be considered the record? I'm asking, would you, in your own mind, consider it the record? 45% of those who've responded vote yes. 55% vote no. Will Kane, if you were to vote on my Twitter poll, which way would you vote?
No.
Because?
Well, I think I heard you say this morning. It seems like there's nothing we can be certain about in this world. So,
if I could tell you with 100% certainty,
yes,
if I could actually produce documented evidence, video evidence of every moment of Giancarlo Stanton's life, what I'm trying to get to here is it because it isn't the record, or is it because you still have some uncertainty about Stanton? If we removed any uncertainty about Stanton, would you consider it the record?
No. It's not rational, Greeny. I pride myself on trying to be very, very consistent. If the only guy ahead of him is the guy who's proven to have cheated to get there, then isn't that the record? But there's something in that about going back and rewriting record books and being your own little almanac every time you step up to the bar that bothers me. No. It's written. It's in black and white. Yep. The ink is dry. This is the record. There are problems with it. I agree. We can put asterisks in our mind, but I'm not going to write it out.
How about this? Would you trade Giancarlo Stanton? Because right now he is the hottest hitter in baseball, and Jeff Passan is writing that the Miami Marlins are an irresponsible joke, my words, not his, for not trading him and trying to rebuild their franchise. He has 10 years and $295 million left on his contract. Would you trade him, / would you trade for him?
I would trade him, definitely, if I'm the Miami Marlins. The question is when. And you got to trade him when the market value is at its highest. That cannot be through the end of this season, because you need hope and you need more teams in on it. So those two things work together. This next offseason, into the next season, there will be more teams who believe their futures are bright, bringing more bidders to the bargaining table, pushing Giancarlo Stanton's price up. I can't imagine, what is it, possibly 2, 3, 4 teams that could be interested through the remainder of this season. That's just not going to push your price as high as it would be in the year to come.
What's the value of having that guy, though? And I mean, it's a stadium that gets tens of people in it. And while Stanton is hitting all the
tens of people,
but with the new ownership coming in, and Derek Jeter is about as respected as can be as a player, and now as a former player, and what he's done with the Players Tribune. I mean, there may not be a guy that's more respected by other players, and I think certainly by baseball people and baseball fans. So he's going to come in and try and turn around the fortune. So he's going to get instant respect to try and help this product, this team. Wouldn't part of that be, and here's our guy? And here is our man. We're building around him. We're not taking the best home run hitter in baseball and getting rid of him. We're going to hang on to him. We're going to make him the centerpiece while we build a championship.
Okay, hear me out, all right? I'm a Texas Rangers fan. One of the best trades in the Dallas area, besides the Herschel Walker trade, was the Mark Teixeira trade for the Texas Rangers. They traded him with an extra year on his contract, thus giving him a much higher value. And the haul they got back from the Braves set that franchise up for years, put them into the World Series twice with the players they got back. I understand, by the way, that's the exception when trading a superstar in any
Can you
sport.
get deals like that anymore?
Well, with a guy with 10 years on his contract, you would think you'd get one of the highest returns you could possibly imagine in baseball. So that if the Marlins have an opportunity to create an actually competitive team, and not just a guy, Golic, that I believe you laid out as – he's an amazing player, so don't get your feathers up on this, but a marketing play. What you described for me, what Jeter's mindset would be a marketing play, would be a massive mistake. And not to make a quick transition to something I do want to talk about, the same mistake, for example, that the Los Angeles Rams made in taking Jared Goff. You did not set your franchise up to succeed. You set it up to sell tickets.
But it's a marketing play that also has a guy who hits the most home runs in the league. There's value to that.
Very true.
I mean, that's going to help you win games with a guy hitting home runs. So it's not just to me, it's more that I agree.
It's not Jared Goff, is your point.
And it is a marketing play as well. But they need that. You know, that's part and parcel to it now. I mean, we'll build a good team and win a championship. We've seen the Florida Marlins do that twice and then disband their teams. Yeah. I think they'd like to build something a little more consistent with Miami Marlins there. And I don't know, if you got a guy for 10 more years, and the one thing I like about it is he has still 10 years left, and he's young. You didn't give a 10-year contract to a 32-year-old. He has 10 years left, and he's only 27. So you're going to get, maybe year 8, 9, and 10, but the bulk of that, you're still going to hopefully get good play out of him. So I agree it's marketing, but I think at least with him, you get a guy that knocks the ball out of the park and can help you.
Will Kane is here with the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. You took us there yourself, so let's go to Jared Goff. I know you were hosting with Ryan Russillo yesterday here on ESPN Radio, and you brought up an interesting question about a guy who last year the Los Angeles Rams mortgaged a huge portion of their future to draft number 1 overall.
I've been fascinated by this question for some time, and Ryan and I talked about it at length yesterday. When do you know? When do you know you've made a massive mistake? How long? Well, number one, do the Rams know right now? And when did they begin to know? And I think, and I have heard, that they knew pretty early on. They knew as early as training camp last year that this was a massive mistake. Now, I've talked to Herm Edwards, talked to Louis Riddick. How do you know this? Well, you can tell what a guy has between his ears pretty quickly. The difference between a whiteboard and live action is very different. I do have questions about why you can't sort that out before a draft, but apparently you know it pretty quickly after a draft. So this was the question I asked to Louis Riddick yesterday. If you know about Jared Goff, and if the Rams then put him on the trade market, what could they get back for him today? I think the answer is pretty depressing.
I don't know what he said. It's certainly not going to be a first. It's not going to be a second. It's probably not going to be a third. Probably maybe iffy on a fourth, fifth. Well, I don't know what he said, 4th, 5th round?
Well,
I don't think it would be much lower than that, I don't think.
We're all in the same range. I put it at about a 4th or 5th where you are. Riddick said he thought it would be hard to get a 4th. And by the very nature of putting Jared Goff on the market, you would depress his value by, I don't know what, a round or two.
The mere fact that you're willing to trade him in the same way that I wouldn't want Jimmy Garoppolo if Bill Belichick was willing to trade him to me. I don't want Jared Goff if the Rams, a year removed from mortgaging their entire future to draft him, are willing to trade him.
I completely disagree about Garoppolo, and we've had that discussion before. But we know they're not putting Goff up for sale right now. We know that. But that's an interesting question. Also, I think something you have to put into it is Jeff Fisher and that staff have been questioned about coaching quarterbacks for a while now. I mean, quarterbacks they've brought in have not done well, and a lot have looked to the staff in not maybe how they coach them, but I guess you have to look into it as well, who they picked and why they picked them. No way a decision will be made on Goff after, 7 starts last year. He needs to be the starter. They need to put him out there, and they need to see where it goes. They've tried to improve the pieces around them, especially that offensive line, which has been dreadful there. So he needs to get a year under his belt to at least see what you have.
Hey, I'm a big believer that success is situational. You have to be in the right position to succeed. I'm sure you know that, Golic, in football. I can tell you that extends beyond the realm of sports. It extends to places like this set or this building or any other business. You got to be put in the right position. And Jared Goff has had multiple offensive coordinators, multiple head coaches, multiple systems. He's not been in a position to succeed. And yet, we should say, he played 2 series against the Dallas Cowboys. 8 plays. And then they pulled him out and said, attaboy, slapped him on the back, said, hope you have a good week with that confidence. That's pretty eye-opening.
Mike and Mike, Will Kane is here. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Customers who switch to Progressive save an average of $500. Call or click today. Find out if they could save you hundreds on your car insurance. You mentioned the Cowboys. People who know Will know that you were a big Cowboy fan. What was your reaction? We haven't seen you since last Friday in the news that Zeke Elliott's suspension is 6 games.
Shocked. Shocked. And disappointed. You bring up the fact that I'm a Cowboy fan. I think it's only fair to lay down my biases when I go into something like this. Yes, I'm a massive Dallas Cowboys fan. Secondarily, I'm a lawyer. So my instincts run a certain way at the outset. If Zeke is guilty of the things he's alleged to have done, he deserves a 6-game suspension. But there is no way that I can imagine the suspension should be 5, 4, or 3 games. It is 6 games or 0 games, because the question with Zeke is guilt or not guilty. I'm not going to say innocence. Right. Guilt or not guilty. And the lawyer in me is very, very uncomfortable with anything where the major piece of evidence is someone's word. I don't care if it's a man, a woman, or what the crime may be. If the major piece of evidence is one piece of testimony against another, I have a problem with that. And right now, and I spoke to someone at the NFL after the Zeke suspension, and God, it gets so lawyerly. And no one wants to be in the lawyerly perspective. No one wants to hear it. But the fact is, this is where we are. Their burden of proof is more likely than not, which basically is 51%.
It almost seems like a civil suit, doesn't it?
It's exactly that.
More than a trial.
Or the preponderance of the evidence.
You know where you heard that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We all know what this burden means. It's roughly about 51%. I'm just uncomfortable with convicting people, even in the court of public opinion, at 51% when it is so reliant on two people's word. I'm just uncomfortable with it.
So what would do you have a solution? I mean, are you – because there are those that are saying, listen, if the law isn't going after them, if they drop the charges, and we know why you can drop charges. If all of a sudden somebody doesn't want to talk or, God forbid, they get paid off and whatever the situation, and all of a sudden you don't have witnesses to go with anything, so you drop the charges. There are those that feel, well, the league shouldn't do anything either. If the legal system isn't, then the league should. Are you?
I am, because you asked me, do I have a solution? The God's honest truth, Golic, is I don't have a really good solution. So what I suggest is that the NFL follow the criminal justice system. You're not built to be the FBI. You're not built to be a prosecutor's office. You're built to put an entertaining football product on the field for people to watch. So if the criminal justice system, who has a very different burden of proof, by the way, that's why they didn't bring charges, if they can't find a reason to arrest or charge, much less convict, I don't think the NFL should be running. And I know every business can do this. Every business has their own prerogative, and I get that. But I just don't think they should be running these kangaroo courts with these Keystone Cop investigations. I just don't think it's what it's built for.
I mean, with the people they have running investigations, you're saying you don't trust or you don't think they do a good enough job, or?
Well, it will always be this, Golic. The problem will be one of influence and intention. The NFL's job is not to find the truth. That's not their motivation. It's not any business's motivation. A business's motivation is to make money and put their best product on the field, and you will always then be susceptible to public opinion. So if Ray Rice has no public outrage, it's 2 games. If there's massive public outrage, it's a season. If it's the same with Greg Hardy, Ezekiel Elliott, what I feel like when your standard is 51%, it's not hard to get that extra 2% when you feel like the public tides are pushing you in one direction. That's what I think. So if the NFL's not built to find the truth, and this is an important thing, the truth in these outcomes, then don't be in the business.
So what about the other side of that? Because they are, keen to public perception, because public perception drives people to watch your sport or not, and advertisers to advertise with your sport or not. Let's take the Greg Hardy situation. He was convicted by a judge, but then he got to go to trial, and we know what happened there. And we all think we understand what happened there. And you read that police report and look at that. So now if we go your way of saying, well, if the law found nothing there and they dropped it, then nothing should happen to them, what happens with the outcry then? Then you get an outcry. Then you get people on the other side saying, you guys let it go. You turn a blind eye. These guys have a lot of money. They can pay off the victims and not say anything. Then they're not going to get suspended. Is this the type of player that you want? He did something. I'm not talking about any player in this case. I'm talking about a situation. So now they have to deal with that side of it. I mean, they're almost damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Well, it's a great rebuttal. I think the only response to that is this. If you have a clear standard that you adhere to faithfully, and it's even one that you outsource, I think you'll get much less public pushback. I think if you show you're willing to measure the public on every single outcome, the public's very willing to push you wherever they want you.
Yeah,
I think that is easily the most legitimate criticism that you can send in the direction of the NFL, is that they've just been all over the map on this subject, and that it is easy to look at it now and say, I don't have any way of knowing what actually did or did not happen with Ezekiel Elliott and his former girlfriend. But it is so easy to look at it and say they got the Ray Rice thing so wrong and have been so universally lambasted for it. And then the Josh Brown thing last year was an extraordinary mistake, which they looked so terrible over, that it's easy to say that they could find the 2% they're looking for if they want to, based upon the fact that they did not want to have that circumstance again. And again, I'm not suggesting that Ezekiel Elliott is not 100%, because I would share what
I don't know either. I don't know either.
If Zeke Elliott did do the things that they think they found that he did, to me, 6 games strikes me as light. To be honest with you, I said when the whole Ray Rice thing first happened, before we'd even seen the first video, I said suspend him for a year. Let him fight me. Let someone fight me. Now, the problem you have is the union has nowhere to fight. They have nowhere to go to fight. Basically, you can tell me I'm suspending you for a year, and I can come back and say I'd like to appeal that, and you can say I'm not interested anymore. And that's the end of it. That's basically the setup that they have, and that's the setup that everyone has agreed to, which is a terrible system as far as I'm concerned, because absolute power corrupts absolutely. But at the end of the day, 6 games, if indeed these are the circumstances, or let's just insert some circumstances here that we can prove, strikes me as minimal, not maximal.
Yeah, I want to say this as well. I don't question the NFL's I actually don't question the NFL's integrity or their motivations. I think they're trying. I mean, they've got a former attorney general from the state of New Jersey. They've got a former U.S. prosecutor on these panels of people they're running the evidence by. They're trying. It's the matter of the world honestly works by incentive more it does than right and wrong. What's the NFL's incentive? It's business. It's not the truth. And that's just going to be the way it is. The other thing that has to be said is Zeke has not been a model citizen regardless of the outcome of this domestic violence allegation. Zeke's got to get it together. Nothing here is to absolve him of being a good, upstanding member of the Dallas Cowboys and the United States of America.
And he has not been that. I would agree. He has been his own worst enemy, especially with all these other things that have been going on. And so the result of it will be, we assume, a 6-game suspension. So then what happens? He comes back. Are the Cowboys still the team to beat in the NFC?
NFC. I think they're still the team to beat in the NFC East. I think Darren McFadden and Alfred Morris are capable stand-ins for 6 games. I think the Cowboys come out of that with at least a 500 record. They're not the home run hitter that Zeke is, but at the end of 6 games, I think that the biggest threat in the NFC East for the Dallas Cowboys is the New York Giants, who have serious offensive line issues. And if your big claim to fame is, hey, check out our receivers, I just don't know that that's a model for success in the NFL. I like a team with a little bit stronger in offensive line. Maybe, again, that's my Dallas Cowboys bias. But are they the team to beat in the NFC, the conference at large? This Zeke suspension could make that a problem. It could put the Packers or the Falcons definitely in the driver's seat of that conference.
Yeah, I think they are, and I agree with you about the Giants. Everybody says it could be the Giants' year for that division, but lack of O-line, lack of running game, and relying on just your receivers, the pieces they put on defense were certainly better last year. We'll see where that goes.
He is Will Kane. Golic will give him a bag of Cheetos.
Yeah.
As a thank you for coming by and saying hello to us. He's on his way to go do First Take.
He's going to owe me more than that because I think I'm hanging out with him all day tomorrow.
Oh, really?
That's right.
Wow, you've got Will Kane
that?
tomorrow because I'm not here, and then I've got Will Kane Friday because you're not here.
Well, you're going to be busy.
We'll see if I don't show up tomorrow. It's because you vetoed it in the next 12 hours.
No, that's not going to happen.
And in a perfect world, we'll be sitting over there on our regular set as opposed to over here
complaining
in
about
the freezing cold without any notes and nothing to drink.
The best of Mike and Mike.
All right, we are Mike and Mike. We're still on these ridiculous chairs over here because there's still something wrong with the studio.
You know what's great? We got paper all over the table, your computer on the table, yet they didn't want my feet on the table. Hey, Golic, get your fat feet off the table. It doesn't look good on TV. Oh, it doesn't? How does all that look? Look good for you? Is that good?
Here's what looks really good is we got to flank ourselves with a couple of quarterbacking brothers, and we have done exactly that. We got Matt and Tim Hasselbeck here to talk football with us. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Hey, by the way, real quick, I was walking into the studio, and I heard that loud screech.
Yeah.
And I was really concerned for Greeny. I thought he was injured. We hand these Band-Aids over to him.
You got
that paper cut that he got. I thought
cut.
like something fell from the ceiling and crushed somebody.
I thought there was an animal in distress.
It was. I mean, Greeny was going through his papers.
There's a lot of pieces of paper over here.
Everything. He did. He dropped everything. Ow! I hurt myself. I said, don't ever say paper cut and hurt myself in the same sentence.
A paper cut hurts. I mean,
don't paper cut hurt. Can you play through this?
Just because you're football players, it doesn't mean, and you have a different threshold of playing.
It's like a pitcher breaking a fingernail.
Yeah,
I get it,
I'm with you. And when we get on a one-shot, Bickler, get in here and pick the papers up before they get mad at us for this.
Listen, I don't do this show with a red jersey.
Greeny doesn't want to pick
the
papers. They're dangerous. They might cut him.
2 things. First off, you guys are a big part of the fantasy football marathon. I saw you outside kicking field goals with a small ball.
Very small.
With the inflatable uprights. It was the 2 of you and Ryan Clark, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
I saw you make one. Were you the only one?
Thank you.
Tim
yes,
made one?
I was.
You were the only.
I'm the only one out of the 3 of us.
I made a bunch, but never when it counted. It was like me on the driving range. I'm hitting great drives. Then the first tee comes, and I don't know what happens. I just shank it on the first tee box.
I think Ryan Clark was more concerned about ripping those light blue pants he had on. They were a little snug.
They were a little snug. I agree with that.
I don't think it was
Spray-on
possible
wool, I think, is what they were.
All right,
good.
The Hasselbecks are here.
Follow through.
Yeah.
Straight Talk brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Let's get to it. We're going to have Sean McVay coming up, the coach of the Rams, shortly. And when Will Kane was in here a little while ago, we were talking about Jared Goff, who certainly had a challenging first year and now goes into a second season with a lot of questions surrounding him. And let's not get into what would happen if they tried to trade him. Let's talk about what we saw from him as a rookie and what we think is a reasonable expectation in a progression from him. Are we genuinely worried? Is it too soon, or are we genuinely worried that it is already looking like this was a disastrously bad pick?
Well, listen, I think it's a little bit too soon because I think many people would agree that the situation for the Rams a year ago was a bit of a disaster. Not a ton of continuity. I think the talent surrounding him, wasn't all that great. He obviously was, in a situation where there were other guys playing, so he wasn't necessarily being given all the work that you would anticipate. But I think there was definitely some alarming signs. And I talked to a coach that was on that staff and asked, hey, how did he handle it? And I didn't get a real good response from the coach saying that he came away impressed, because part of playing the position is the mental toughness that goes along with dealing with lack of success. So, look, there was a lot to like when he was coming out of Cal. There really was. I mean, in terms of, how developed he was as a passer inside the pocket and all that stuff. So there should still be some promise, but I think a lot needs to be done, and there should be a significant jump.
Sorry, go on.
As you've come over to the analyst role, what do you see from him?
Well, it's almost easier to look at it through the quarterback role. Like when you have a defensive head coach and they just say, oh, we're just going to run Todd Gurley, don't screw it up, that kind of mindset, it's awful to be a quarterback in that kind of a situation. But also, he was the third-string quarterback last year for much of the year. Like they didn't even put him as the backup quarterback.
Inactive in the first game.
Exactly. Never mind the starting quarterback. So to me, it's like last year is just sort of this like nightmare season as a rookie that he's going to learn from in his career. But this is the year that he's got to make it happen. Like they hired Sean McVay, the youngest head coach in the league, to reach Jared Goff. Like this guy got hired as the head coach because of you. Like we've already got so much invested in you, so we're going to get a head coach where you can succeed. And we're making trades. We got Sammy Watkins. Like we're going to build this thing around you. You better produce.
Mike and Mike, the Hasselbeck brothers are here. Other young quarterbacks. We saw Deshaun Watson, impressive in his first preseason game. We saw him doing a lot of the things that we projected him to be able to do coming forward from college. And he's on a team that has very high aspirations and has an unproven starting quarterback in place. What is your sense of the chance that he winds up getting that starting job pretty quickly?
I think there's a really good shot. Bill O'Brien has basically been the Steve Spurrier of the NFL in terms of moving around quarterbacks. He's shown very little patience with quarterbacks that are making mental mistakes, aren't playing well, and then obviously if there's an injury, that plays into it also. I think the thing to watch for the Houston Texans is just even watch the highlights that we've shown from their first preseason game. Virtually everything is in the shotgun. There's a ton of empty stuff. I mean, it's the spread offense version in the National Football League. That's what Houston does, and that's what Deshaun Watson was tremendous at doing in college. So I actually think his skill set and the things he's comfortable with meshes quite well with a lot of the stuff that they want to do in Houston offensive anyway.
So Matt, when we look at the young quarterbacks and what they did, and if they played poorly, we would have said, oh, they played poorly. They played well, so you have to give them their due. No matter who they were playing against, that's who they were asked to play against, they played well. That said, where do you pull the reins back and say, okay, everybody, hold on now?
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm class of 98, so that's Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf that year. Those two guys faced off the first game of the preseason, and I think the Chargers beat the Colts 38-3. Manning, struggled. Leaf played great. The headlines were, Leaf outduels Manning. So, I mean, that was week one. The thing I would say as a young quarterback, what ends up happening, you play a lot of teams that are zone teams, and the scouts and the coaches want to get a look at these guys playing man coverage. So you got to, especially when these backup quarterbacks are playing in the preseason. So you get a lot of guys playing man-free coverage, just like one-on-one, right. You and your buddy like you did in the front yard, recess, high school, college, and you're just out there playing, and it's very, very different. And so you get a good look at your personnel, but it's a whole nother ball game playing in the regular season.
Here's the other thing that happens and just think about this class of guys. And so, Trubisky, Watson, Kaiser for that matter. When you play man, well, the guy that's not getting covered is the quarterback. And these guys are all athletic. And what we saw from all of those guys is we saw them make plays as runners. Well, it's a lot easier to do that when defensive backs and linebackers have their backs turned. So usually mobile quarterbacks in the preseason, to Matthew's point about people playing so much man to see it, usually those guys do well. I mean, remember Michael Bishop was all the rage when Tom Brady was in camp with the Patriots.
Well, and to go along with that, the backup offensive linemen are never as good as the second line of a defensive line.
Right.
Like your second group of defensive linemen can get after the passer. Right. There's a big drop-off from that first offensive line to the second offensive line.
It's a good point because a lot of times that second D line, they'll turn into being rotation guys and playing a lot on Sundays,
Are you saying that because you were the second rotation of defense? Like, was that like a humble brag?
No idea what you're talking about. I want to stop talking.
Matt, I want to ask you about this one because you played up until you were an older. How old were you
40.
in your last season? 40, exactly. Yeah. So that's how old Tom Brady is now. So to me, one of the most interesting scenarios in the entire league right now is if indeed I'm reading this correctly, and that is Bill Belichick has identified Jimmy Garoppolo as his quarterback of the future. If he didn't think that, I believe he would have traded him during the just past offseason. So he has identified Garoppolo as his quarterback of the future. We got ourselves a pretty interesting scenario brewing because if Tom continues to play at basically the same level he has been, 40, then 41 next year, they could theoretically franchise tag Garoppolo next year. Now he'll be making about twice as much money as Tom is, but let's even put that aside. Now you got another year. Tom is 42. Give us a sense of how long you think realistically, having played the position at the age that Brady is now, how long can he just keep going before anyone is just going to start to deteriorate? It is just natural. What is your expectation?
I really think he's got a lot of good football left in front of him if he wants it. It reminds me a little bit of the Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers scenario where you had a guy on the bench you really liked. You thought he had a great future in this league. They had Aaron Rodgers. And then you got Brett Favre, who, they were like, they had to make a decision. They went with Aaron Rodgers. Brett Favre went on to play for the Jets for a little while, retired, went on to play for the Vikings. I mean, he played, I don't know how many years. I forget how many years it was. It all runs together.
Played one for the Jets and I believe two for the Vikings.
I mean, I know when I was Brett Favre's backup in 2000, there was talk about, well, he's going to retire soon. Maybe you should just, stay here. I mean, I was, in my mind, in the Jimmy Garoppolo role that I was in, I was sort of willing to wait. Like, yeah, hey, I love it here. That'd be great. I could wait 2 years, 3 years. Good thing I didn't. It was like another 10 years or whatever it was. It was an eternity. Yeah. But it's interesting. You got maybe two of the top 32 quarterbacks in the NFL, both on the New England Patriots. But to me, the difference is Brady has shown that he's the best. He's winning Super Bowls, and that's
so. If they don't franchise him and Garoppolo is a free agent, do you think there's any way he would take less? Because there's no way the Patriots would offer him what he would get on the open market.
No.
You know how it works nowadays, that he would take less and stay?
No, and I think Garoppolo, I even see it a little bit with Garoppolo. I think he's itching for his
kind of ready
chance.
to do his thing.
Yeah, it seems like that. He's tasted it before because of the suspension, his time to play there. And listen, a lot of people have talked about him. I think he has the feeling that he can handle it. The difference with the Green Bay situation with Favre and Rodgers, and you experienced it, Matthew, Brett was never around in the offseason. And Brett also was giving you I might come back, I might not come back.
And Brady's doing the opposite of that. Brady's saying, hey, I'm going to play 5 more years.
I'm playing till I'm 50, whatever he wants to do. And so they are less likely to feel like, hey, listen, we can't. It's a little bit like what Ben's doing. Ben is doing more what Brett did.
Right.
Where the Steelers may have to move on from Ben maybe before Ben wants it to happen because they feel like, hey, look, if you're ready, we need to prepare ourselves. New England, I don't think, feels that way.
Hey, Greeny, to answer your question about Garoppolo, I think the most likely scenario is one of those coaches from the Patriots staff gets a head job. And it just makes perfect sense. It's like, say it's Josh McDaniels. Hey, Josh McDaniels, you're the new head coach in, pick a great organization that's going to have an availability. And how are you going to do this? Well, I'm bringing my guy. I'm bringing Jimmy G with me. That's how I see the scenario playing out.
I'll say this. I think rather than bodies falling apart, it's kids getting older and wanting to spend time with them. Yeah, Brady's got a family now. Like it happened to Matthew. I think that's maybe that's what'll pull you away.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Golic, as we prepare to bring in our next guest, I want to put into context just how young this gentleman is.
Yes.
I could tell you that as he becomes the head coach, Sean McVay of the Los Angeles Rams, that when they open the season, he will be the youngest head coach in the league since Pappy Lewis.
Pappy!
For the Cleveland Rams in 1938. Pappy Lewis.
Awesome.
But I'd rather put it this way. Mike, when Sean McVay was born, Wade Phillips, who is now his defensive coordinator, was 38 years old and about to start his first season as Eagles defensive coordinator, where they had a defensive tackle, a chunky one, who wore the number 90 and went by the name of Mike Golic.
I don't know why you got to go chunky, but I got to say, he's with the Rams now. Sean should be extremely happy that if Wade Phillips can coach me to greatness, just think what he can do with a guy once they get Aaron Donald back and the other defensive players as well.
Sean McVay with us on Mike and Mike. Good morning, Coach. How are you?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Doing well, Coach.
We are doing well, and I know it's probably been the most frequently asked question that you receive, and yet it is just a fascinating dynamic at your age, where you are coaching amongst people who are so much older than you and coaching, in fact, some players who are older than you. Just how does that dynamic work, and how do you approach it on a daily basis?
Well, I think the great thing about it is when you're surrounded by great people like you mentioned with Coach Wade, this is actually, he mentioned to me when we started up, this is his 40th training camp, so puts things in perspective for him. But, when you have great coaches and you've got players that are, receptive to what we're trying to get done and what we're trying to accomplish, especially at the pro level, these are grown men, and as long as there's a mutual respect where you're trying to build and develop relationships, and then they also know that you have their best interests and we're trying to ultimately help them become the best football players so that we can all have success together, then I think it ends up being a good situation, and that's the environment that we're trying to create here in L.A.
So before those players really got a chance to know you, and while you could have the sage advice and help of older coaches around you, that first day when you're standing in front of the team, the coaches aren't, aren't up there with you. It's you and the team. What was your message to them as the youngest head coach trying to lead this team that have been struggling for years?
Well, I think it was just kind of similar to what we're talking about, where it's ultimately about trying to connect as a team and try to establish and maintain a culture where it's about being a part of something bigger than yourself. And, we've got some guidelines and some different things that we feel like will help us establish and maintain kind of our culture of we, not me, that we talk about amongst our team. And I think ultimately that's driven by the players and the coaches. And I think when you've got great leaders in place at some of these spots that we do, those guys end up setting the standard, and then everybody kind of falls in alignment. And a lot of these things were from great coaches I've been around, but then also the influence that my grandfather's had on me with his experience with Coach Walsh and the 49ers, and some of the things that he felt like allowed them to sustain some success over time. When my grandpa was fortunate enough to be part of 5 Super Bowls. So I've had a lot of great exposure to great coaches, since I got into coaching right when I finished up playing in college, and then also my family background with my grandfather.
Mike, that's when we've gotten old. We covered his grandfather.
Yes, we did. Yep.
Sean McVay, the head coach of the Rams, is with us, and you've got a lot of big-name players on both sides of the ball in various elements of the news. Let's start with your quarterback. I think there was a general perception that one of the primary reasons you were brought there was because of your ability to develop young quarterbacks. So take us through that process. What was job one, step one, as you began working with Jared Goff, and how would you describe where you are with him right now?
Well, I think just the way that the off-season program is shaped, it started out where it's exclusive to classroom work, where you're just trying to get Jared and the rest of our quarterbacks familiar with some of our verbiage and some of the things in terms of how we want to operate. And, then you get out onto the field, and it finishes up in the off-season program with OTAs and the mini camp. And biggest thing for us, guys, was that when we started training camp, we wanted to make sure that everybody understood how important it was to pick up where we left off, not really start over, even though from an installation standpoint, you kind of start from day one. And I think when you look at just being receptive to the new information, being able to get in and out of the huddle, handle how the different coverages, affect your progressions in the timing and rhythm of the plays, I think he's done a nice job, and I think the best indicator and the best way to judge a quarterback is ultimately when you're playing in those games when you can actually get hit, you're seeing a live rush and your ability to move and manipulate a pocket and find a way to distribute the ball to the playmakers. But he's done a very good job. I think this week against a good Oakland defense will provide an opportunity to get a little bit more playing time than he did against Dallas. And those are things that we're always looking to grow from. And like any other day, there's always room for improvement. But where he's at right now, I think he's made some nice strides.
Is he someone, because, 7 starts last year, didn't play obviously more than half the season, that, and I know it didn't happen in the first preseason game, but where you give him maybe more time than a normal starting quarterback would get in preseason, or is that overrated because of the work you do in practice with him?
I definitely don't think it's overrated. I think you want to be very mindful of trying to get these guys as much work as possible, but not at the expense of, putting them at risk for injury, which we know in this game there's always a chance for that. But I think the biggest thing for us as a coaching staff that we've discussed, Mike, is just the dynamic between getting him the reps that is very necessary for a second-year quarterback, having only played in 7 games last year, but also being mindful of getting him in there with the guys that he's going to be playing with up front, some of the receivers and skill players, being mindful of how long you want to keep a Todd Gurley or an Andrew Whitworth in there. So all those things come into play, but in terms of the experience, especially from a quarterback standpoint with how beneficial that is, just being able to learn from the good and the bad, I don't think you can get enough, but it is a delicate balance, especially in the preseason when ultimately we're trying to get ready for that Indy game and make sure we're at our best when September 10th rolls around.
Sean McVay, head coach of the Rams, that's their opener in the regular season against the Colts. The big move you make last week, trading for Sammy Watkins. What does he bring to your offense and how quickly?
Well, I think the thing that I've been impressed with Sammy so far, clearly he's a dynamic receiver that has the ability to stretch the field vertically, and when the ball's in his hands, good things happen. You just look at why he was taken where he was because of what type of special talent he was at Clemson. And then when he's been available, I think he's shown that he is that type of player consistently. And it's about us making sure that we get him in here, get him up to speed quickly. I think when you're just around him in these first couple days, he's clearly a very smart person, and there is a little bit of carryover just in terms of the baseline of some of the verbiage because what Coach Dennison was doing in Buffalo from just the strictly formations and some of the standard concepts, there is a little bit of carryover because it kind of has that West Coast verbiage background, if you will, going back to when Coach Dennison was with Gary Kubiak, and there's a lot of similarities. But I think he's a smart guy. I think, getting to see him work yesterday where he ran some more routes, got involved in the team drills, you certainly feel him, and we're excited about having Sammy and looking forward to him being a big part of our offense.
Adding new pieces like that. You mentioned the left tackle, a center as well. But then there are pieces that you have there that are great, and one is Aaron Donald on the other side of the ball, who's holding out now. And while you're a young head coach, you've been around the league for a while, and you kind of know how this thing works. I'm wondering now, as a head coach with the guy sitting in the big chair, how do you deal with it? Do you speak with him through an agent or to him, or do you just let that be and are coaching only who's there? How do you handle a situation like this?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think until you really get in this chair, the amount of things that come across your desk, which kind of everybody always told you, you can't even truly appreciate it and realize it until it actually happens. But, I think the great thing about the situation is certainly Aaron's a guy that we're trying to figure out a solution to get him here as quickly as possible. And we would love for him to be here, and that communication is continuing to be ongoing, and we want to have that dialogue with those guys. But in the meantime, what you feel good about is whether it's a holdout or an injury, like unfortunately happened with Dominique Easley, the NFL provides a next man up mentality, and I think our guys have done an excellent job of staying focused on getting better every single day, worrying about what we can control, and being mindful of the fact that while we would love to have Aaron here, there's 31 other teams in this league that are preparing and trying to get better for the regular season as well. So we're trying to find that solution, Mike, but we're not going to allow it to affect our ability to move forward in the meantime. And when we are able to hopefully get that thing worked out, we'll welcome Aaron back with open arms, and I know I'll have a big smile on my face.
I bet you will. But would it be fair to say that the guys that have a big smile on their face right now that Aaron's not here, is the O-line that doesn't have to face him in one-on-ones? Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good point. I think that's a great point. Yeah, I don't think that our interior linemen miss going against Aaron Donald every single day in some of those one-on-one pass rush drills, especially the days that you don't have pads on.
I would agree.
Hey, Coach, good luck. Thanks a million for a few minutes this morning.